Okay, welcome everyone to our special event this evening, Navigating Your Path in Ocean Conservation, a career panel for the next generation of ocean leaders. This event is presented by the National Ocean Sciences Bowl in partnership with Ocean Conservancy. Thank you all for being here today. We're going to start with a brief introduction, a couple slides, and then we'll get into our panelist presentations. So if you're unfamiliar, thank you for being here. We're happy to introduce the NOSB to you. My name is Nicole Palma, and I am the NOSB Program Specialist. We also have Melissa Broder here, who is our NOSB Program Manager. Say hi,
Hey
Melissa.
everyone.
The NOSB is a program of the Center for Ocean Leadership at the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, or COL at UCAR for short. We love acronyms. At its core, the NOSB is a nationwide high school academic competition focused on ocean sciences. The program is managed by us at the national office and implemented through 25 regional competitions hosted by major research institutions, laboratories, nonprofits, and aquaria around the US. Winning teams of regional bowls are then invited to a national finals competition, typically, pending funding. Um, but the NOSB is more than just a competition focused on science and stewardship. It's really a community that fosters joy and hope for our future ocean leaders. If you aren't already involved, please check out our website at nosb.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter, and also find your closest regional bowl, where you can either get involved as a competing team, or see if you can volunteer by contacting your regional coordinator. You can also reach out to us at any time with questions or ideas at nosb@ucar.edu. All right. So, why are we here tonight? Every NOSB competition year has a different theme that helps inform the topic of the competition questions and the extra activities that we offer, like this, which is part of our professional development webinar series. This year, our theme is Ocean Conservation, Connecting Science and Stewardship for a Healthy Ocean. We have teamed up with Ocean Conservancy to hear from three of their incredible early career staff. They'll each share their stories and the work they are currently doing. And I'll let them introduce themselves when it's their turn to give their presentation. But we'll have time for questions at the end, so please use the Q&A feature throughout to submit questions during the event. We'll try to keep the chat more for general comments or thoughts, and then use the Q&A feature, which that's there, right? Do we see that on the bottom of your screen?
Yes, you can find it if you go to, it's right between the More button. There should see a little box with a question mark in it, noted Q&A.
That's awesome. So that way we can keep track of all the questions and make sure we're answering them. And then you feel free to be on or off camera, but please remain muted throughout to avoid any disruptions to our speakers. The event is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel afterwards. And we'll send out everyone who registered a link to that, but you can also just search our YouTube anytime. We have a lot of past recordings on there from previous webinars. And then just if you're using the chat, reminder to be respectful. It's a competition here, but we're not trying to trash talk each other this evening. We'll save that for the competition. Not really. We want to be sportsmen. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. Okay, over to our first panelist. I believe we have Tyrese is going first. I'm going to stop my screen share so we can get started.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate that.
Yes, let me spotlight.
Can we see my screen okay?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Tyrese Mitchum. I'm the Ray Fellow with Government Relations at Ocean Conservancy, and I'll explain everything on what that means later on. But yeah, I'm just very appreciative to be here and share my story. So first slide, that's me. Took that picture actually pretty recently, and I'm proud of it. But I graduated from high school in 2020, and then I went to UC Santa Barbara and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Environmental Studies and Sociology in 2024. And so, for reference, for those who might be unfamiliar with Southern California and Central, I have a little map on the right side. Top left with that little circle is where I went to school, UCSB. And then to the right in the middle with that little red circle is where I grew up in Menifee, for those who haven't heard. But I typically just tell people it's like in between Los Angeles and San Diego, the cool cities. But I had a great time living there. Getting a little bit into my background, I've always loved animals. I've always enjoyed being out in nature and playing around with different creatures. So here's a couple photos of me just with a bunch of lizards. There's a parrot in the top left and a monkey in the bottom. But I want to highlight the photo on the right. I met this bird named Makana, which is also my middle name, at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Shout out Nicole, who's also from Monterey. And I remember being super young and they weren't having this bird on exhibit, but for whatever reason, they allowed me to come up and get up close. And I had this very close contact experience with this beautiful creature. And I just remember it like bringing in so many emotions with me, like how I wanted to protect the environment, preserve the oceans. And actually, fun fact, Makana is still alive today. So if you were to go to Monterey Bay, you could still meet Makana. She's the plastics mascot for ending ocean plastics over there. So really great animal. And so from that point, you could say like I've been obsessed with the environment and all things ocean, except I wasn't. As soon as I got to high school, I completely forgot about everything environmental. That's why I call like this slide the fall off. I switched up to aquatics instead. So I guess there are like a little bit of ties here with me still liking the water. You can maybe say that had something to do with the ocean, but my priorities switched when I got to high school and I was all about sports. I really wanted to hone in on my swimming abilities. At this time, I applied to college and I knew I was going to UCSB, but I wanted to hone in on some times and be a professional swimmer over there. That's when, unfortunately, that COVID-19 hit and it made me really reassess my priorities. And I decided at this point that I was no longer going to pursue swimming as my main focus. I was going to give another major a try. A friend of mine had mentioned environmental studies in a passing conversation that we had had. And I was like, okay, I remember really liking animals in the past. Maybe I could give it a try. And I decided to take it up and had an amazing time within that focus my first couple years. So there's a lot of pictures on the screen. I'll walk us through it. In the bottom right, where you can see the um, baby squirrel and our baby blue jay over here. This was at my Santa Barbara Wildlife Care Network, where we took care of a lot of different species that were out in the Santa Barbara area, a lot of babies around springtime. It was a really fun job. Uh, Top over here was my lifeguard position. I decided to take up a job over there to get secure some more funds. Still did a little bit of water polo, as you can see in the bottom left, but I also joined a little environmental group fellowship, which you can see all of us in the top right. And then down here is an example of some of the classes I was taking. This was a critical thinking class for environmental studies. And this particular slide was me presenting my project on race and ethnicity within our classes at UCSB. And so just really trying to highlight on those focuses. I really enjoy the classes, things like oceanography, food and agriculture, but like if you can tell anything from this slide, I was just really all over the place with going to college my first year, which is, very good thing. You want to explore and do a lot of different things, but as I was rounding off this year, I know I wanted to be a little bit more intentional with my things. So I started looking into different opportunities, and that's when I came across the Wildland Studies program. So, Wildland Studies is a fantastic program. They take groups of students from college and they take them all over the world for different backpacking trips. They have programs that are in Nepal, Australia, Alaska, Namibia, you name it. My particular program was for the Big Island in Hawaii, and it was a marine management and conservation field studies program that we did. So I applied for it, told him a little bit about my background and got accepted. And I spent 2 weeks with a bunch of different college students going throughout the south side of Hawaii, doing different marine management techniques. So on the bottom left, we were doing some data transects where we'd lay out some lines and we'd swim and we'd be counting different species for biorichness and biodiversity. On the top middle, we were using coral quadrats, which is that little PVC square pipe right there to like randomly throw and see how much coral coverage was happening. And in the bottom right, we were working with a bunch of different local kids and communities to deliver information to their community-based subsistence fishing area. So a lot of stuff I did during this trip. I have so many pictures. I didn't want to flood it all and like overwhelm y'all, but moral of the story right here is that this was a fantastic program and it really shaped like the rest of my college trajectory because promptly after this, I decided to really hone in on the marine science education aspects of my college experience. On the left side, I decided to join a marine science lab. Now, that was a big deal because I was a Bachelor of Arts student, and this is certainly a Bachelor of Science thing, but I still just decided to take a risk and apply myself anyway. And so I had a really great time there, learning a bunch of different things and being able to educate the populace as they come into our marine research lab. I also joined the Wilderness Youth Project, which was an organization focused on getting students from local areas within the Santa Barbara community who are primarily from underrepresented groups and putting them out in nature so that they can have a better experience um, with nature. And I also decided to do a senior thesis, which was an extension of the project that I had mentioned early on the environmental um, on the breakdown of race and ethnicity within our environmental studies department. All that stuff earned me the Outstanding Senior Award that's depicted on the right over here. And so I felt really fulfilled by the end of my college experience. It felt really great. But I got to the end and I was like, I still have no idea what I want to do. I'm not sure as to where we're gonna go now, but I'm sure like it'll work itself out. And about 3 weeks before I graduated, I had been sent an opportunity by a past professor of mine who had mentioned the Ray program I'm currently in right now. I had applied to that and within a couple months had moved to Washington, D.C. So complete 180, opposite side of the country. I'd never been there before. Very excited change in my life. So what is Ray? What is Ocean Conservancy? Good questions. I hear y'all. The RAID program is a program dedicated to getting emerging environmental leaders necessary experience to, really fulfill higher arching environmental positions at different NGOs or in different careers. And so this is a group of us here on the left. This is from a bunch of different ELP orgs, Environmental Leadership Program, but Ray is specifically a subset of that, determined to get students from underrepresented communities the opportunity to have that experience. And with Ocean Conservancy is one of the many different NGOs that you could be placed at. Conveniently enough, it's the one that Aspen and Angel and I also ended up at, but um, Ocean Conservancy is an environmental nonprofit NGO that's focused on uniting science, people, and policy to protect our oceans. And so it felt really up my alley. I was very excited to be here. And on the fellowship side of things, I've had a fantastic time. I've been able to go to New York Climate Week and DC Climate Week, as we can see in the top left. On the right, that's me and Aspen. He will be speaking later. This is us at the BIMS conference. BIMS is short for Black and Marine Science, and that's a different organization that I highly recommend. Focus on getting a bunch of different professionals and Black scientists in the marine space together to accomplish great things. This is a little beach cleanup that we're doing as a part of BIMS. And this photo in the middle is actually from my BIP week that I did. That's short for BIMS immersion program, where they actually sponsored myself and a few other students to go to Tampa and get scuba certified, which I had never done before, but was completely blown away by the week I was there. And it was such a beautiful, great opportunity because that's something I've always wanted to do, but been a little bit scared to do and like pursue. So very grateful for that opportunity. But also over here is a windmill from another summit that I'd been on, a marine research vessel that I had sat in on as well. So I'm just all over the place. And bottom right is from a coastal cleanup that we do at Ocean Conservancy, which Angel can speak a little bit more on later on. But just all that to highlight that there's a lot of different opportunities with my fellowship, and I was really excited. But what do I do on the day to day? On the policy ends of things, I'm in government relations. So I meet with congressional offices to discuss ocean advocacy. So this left little photo of me is my first day on the Hill talking with offices. I was terrified, but I will assure you that it's not that big of a deal. These people aren't here to like grill you and make you feel scared. They're actually here to listen. So I meet with a bunch of different offices to explain why ocean health is important, different ocean issues that they might not be familiar with, including plastics, offshore oil and gas decommissioning, shipping, you name it, all sorts of things. I also aid in programmatic requests, which are essentially telling members of Congress what priorities they should focus on when it comes to funding. So then they go and tell a different committee, like, hey, we should spend about this much money on this amount of conservation or on this program or administration that's focused on ocean health. So do a little bit of that. I prepare memos for relevant bills because there's so many bills coming through, it can be hard to keep track. So I track a few of them and say, hey, this is a really big bill. This is important. We should support it because of these reasons. Or in another case, not support it because of these reasons. And lastly, I do a lot of legislative research. And legislative research is just analyzing an assortment of different things. One specific example is the United States of Plastics report that I helped with that got recently released in July. This was a big report that analyzed all 50 states plus DC's plastic policy to see how they were doing when it came to plastic bag bans, bills that research microplastics, extended producer responsibility, stuff like that. And it gave all of them a score. And it was a pretty big deal because we found out that, the United States isn't doing too great on the national level when it comes to the initiatives collectively, but it also gave everyone a bit of a template on areas that they can improve on, things that they should focus on if they have particular bills within their state that, kind of hinder them from pursuing ocean health or ocean initiatives, stuff of that nature. So it was a big project. I worked on it for a long time. It was my entire life for a little bit, so it was something I was proud about as a fellow. And I'll actually be able to do a presentation on this exact report in Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland, this February when I attend the Ocean Science meeting of 2026. So very happy that I was given this opportunity to work on this project. And it's something that's actively still in my inbox. So very happy about that. Um, Kind of rounding off with the moral of the story here is that it's okay not to know. I, as you've seen from my presentation, have been all over the place with the things I was involved in. And some areas for most part, probably, was not your typical applicant being in like a marine research lab as a Bachelor of Arts students. But, let that be a lesson that you should just put yourself out there if you feel any sort of way towards it. If you're passionate about it, give it a try because I didn't know the first thing about science or government relations, my current position right now, but I still gave it the opportunity. And I'm using it as an opportunity to ask questions too and find out a little bit more about what I want to do next. And also take risks, be sure to do things that are outside your comfort zone. If you've ever been curious about the water, go scuba diving, Navy, or at least get out in the water. It's important to take a risk and put yourself outside that comfort zone. So those are my two morals. And I just want to say thank you for hearing my presentation. I've linked my email as well as the few resources that I've mentioned here, as well as the United States of Plastics report, if anyone is curious with the little QR code. Um, but that is my presentation. I can go ahead and pass it over to Aspen, I believe.
Thank you, Therese. Aspen, you're
Yep.
up.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Sorry, just pulling up my presentation now. Oh, goodness. Oh, sorry about that. Spoilers all around. But can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hi, everyone. Just to, well, I guess rehash a little bit. My name's Asim Batai. I'm the current Science and Knowledge Fellow under the Ray Fellowship, of course, over at Ocean Conservancy. I am just to go a little bit into myself, I am Aitiki Skea Lukukairi. I will explain that in a little bit. I'm, of course, again, the Science and Knowledge Fellow, and I'm a Ray Fellow, working specific at Ocean Conservancy. So, in my role, in short, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but I apply biology, social science, and different discussions of traditional knowledge into our different programs and community-led initiatives held in different places like Alaska, Hawaii, and here in the Chesapeake, DC region where I'm based. But before I really go on and speak about myself, I can't really start without speaking about my own people in the Caribbean. So I wanted to start with a traditional homeland slide. So once our indigenous communities in the Caribbean were spread as far north and south as the red tree boundaries you can see on the map here. But today, our indigenous, Afro-Indigenous, and traditional Black communities continue to live closely with nature in specific and often pretty secluded places across our islands, like those communities that I come from in Aithikiskea, commonly referred to as Haiti and the Dominican Republic today. So, out of respect to a lot of them, not all are mentioned here, since a lot of us live at different levels of recognition, let alone safety. But you may recognize a few over in Jamaica in the bottom left, the Akampong Maroon community over in Cockpit Country that's now recognized by the UN as of last year, the Kalinago community over in Dominica, and of course the Garifuna community that can be found all over the Caribbean and Central America, but originally coming from St. Vincent. So in a way, I was really raised in a bit of privilege when it came to growing up with a lot of the lessons and knowledge that my community had, and a lot of the ancestral knowledge that got passed, which informed a lot of my science. But honestly, my road to the point that I'm at currently was anything but direct. So sincerely, just to give a little bit of background, I'm going to be honest. I don't think I really had that much of a fall off or even a big return to science. I'm going to like, I straight up hated it for most of high school. I'm originally from Queens, New York, moved down to Virginia for elementary school and always had Florida in family. So I kind of grew up wandering around the concrete and swampy coasts around all of the Northeastern United States, at least in the small bits that I could. So during that time for me, nature was more of simply like a nice thing to enjoy, a place of escape. I was taught simple things by my mother about staying safe in nature, according to our traditions, and often found myself using a lot of that when I would go off and explore alone occasionally. But on top of that, as a kid while going through education, I personally thought science at the time, I guess, with my limited mindset, was just overcomplicating a lot of the things with all the talk of molecules and processes. It wasn't really until like late high school through my university's Cambridge program, or through my high school, Potomac Senior High School's Cambridge International program, that I got pretty interested in different things like international topics, the impact of people and how their storytelling really contributes to really discussing a lot of international topics, all while kind of staying in a little bit of denial while having a whole environmental management class that I loved very secretly and running some water quality testing projects that didn't really culminate into something, but still fed my interest at the time. And I'd say that ended up like things really hit a fever pitch when we got over to undergrad. I went to George Mason University starting over in 2017. And I'll be honest, that denial of liking environmental science and things like that kind of followed me there. I originally started as a creative writing major, actually interested in developing stories that reflected and often like tried to represent different versions of the human experience, but I wasn't really interested in publishing standards or a lot of the different types of writing that they were going to require me to go through in the program. So I started thinking, and not long after realizing that one class that I took and added to my schedule in the first semester last second, that was just meant to be, I guess, a prerequisite, really changed my life. So my anthropology class with Dr. Morris really introduced me to try and understand different perspectives on the human experience for myself, and taught me really how to look into that, on top of trying to have an understanding and holding the idea that a lot of people have a lot to say about their own societies and the issues that prevent their change, but a lot of the time they just don't have a platform or agency. So in the programs at GMU, I got involved in a number of different things, since anthropology is various, going from biology all the way to linguistics. So I got involved in a number of different things with all four fields of anthropology, specifically starting with archaeology. My first summer, I volunteered as a museum docent over at Alexandria Archaeology at their urban archaeology lab. I did work as a dig site assistant, going through a couple of the remains that came from one of the colonial ships that got repurposed into a shoreline extension. which was pretty cool, but I realized that still wasn't something that I was too interested in. And I'd say, actually, I'll go back for a second, but I'd say that specifically around that time after that first summer, I really locked in and focused specifically on trying to find out what courses really benefited me, what I really enjoyed the most, and honestly, what places I felt as though the field itself would be not something I would get bored of, sincerely, because having something that you do for the rest of your life is something that you have to consider. So consider I did. And up until 2020, I even put together a couple programs I was interested in trying to figure out. At the time, or before COVID, because I did go through this during COVID times, I got invited into the Lambayeque Biohistory Project and the Undocumented Migration History Project at GMU and UCLA specifically. Both were pretty separate, one with human osteology and looking at archaeological remains, with the other being migration studies and the types of remains that come from that entire thing. But with COVID happening and the fact that it was dangerous to go outside, let alone converse with other people, I kind of had to pivot. So through some conversations and honestly trying to just, I guess, have like a come to Jesus moment with myself a little bit, I ended up talking to a professor and getting added to her research team for a project that she ended up publishing on. So I ended up getting my first publication at 21, which is pretty uncommon for anthropology, let alone a lot of the bio field. But I published specifically speaking on how different communities didn't really have many choices when it came to a lot of the things that were going on during COVID and the ways that they gotten disenfranchised. And on top of that, I got to do my own independent research specifically around political economy, historical ecology, and looking at a lot of the histories of socio-ecological change across the planet while doing, of course, a lot of volunteering because the major required it. And in that culminated at the end of my studies. In 2021, I graduated from my major in anthropology with double minors in sustainability studies and Latin American studies, and a concentration on biocultural studies, having a couple different genetics courses, some regular sociocultural courses, and medical courses under my belt. Even though most people think anthropology is just a regular BA where you don't really touch science, I got to really get my feet wet in a lot of these different places, and honestly, I feel like it definitely informed the direction I took very directly. Also, because of my independent course, by the end of undergrad, I did decide I wanted to stick around in the environmental science sector at large, but I wasn't really sure how to do that. So, in my post grad journey, I found a number of different things. I got an internship over at the Lace Thomas Lovejoy's Amazon Biodiversity Center. One project specifically ran out of the Amazon that looks at biofragmentation and the ways that different areas have been impacted by logging, whether it's their vegetation or their animal species that need to bounce between them in order to reproduce. I also had an externship with the National Geographic Society and the Nature Conservancy, the Marine and Community Conservation externship, looking into a few things in Puerto Rico. That's an amazing opportunity that I highly recommend. Through that and through just general applications, of course, I ended up getting an internship with Oceana. If you look right over here, it's one of our community dinners that we had after one of our planning meetings. A wonderful time, sincerely. And after that internship ended, because it was a terminal position, I realized that I had a lot of things I wasn't completely sure about. I loved the environmental sector, but I had a lot of questions about it. I noticed a lot of discussions that were being had that were, I guess, a little less savory to me. I didn't have a complete understanding due to my lack of scientific background and knowledge. So I call this the age of rapid fire volunteering, but not for the sake of getting a job, because I did have a side job at the time, but for the sake of expanding my own personal knowledge. I did a whole lot of things over here. Like Tyrese mentioned, Black and Marine Science BIMS was an amazing space that I could use to honestly volunteer, get involved, and get to know other Black marine scientists. And in that experience, I got to honestly put together a coral reef presentation for younger students who honestly had sincerely never actually seen a coral reef besides the stuff out of Finding Nemo. So honestly, seeing a bunch of like 5-year-olds light or eyes light up playing with Play-Doh, but specifically asking about the science of the Play-Doh was pretty interesting. I volunteered as a head for the Virginia Latino Higher Education Network, specifically working with different communities and helping with higher education and student involvement when it came to different students that were going to be starting at Virginia Tech over here in Virginia. Um, And lastly, before this current position, I had the privilege of joining the STEM Seas program, which is an amazing program housed or sorry, a amazing program sincerely that's housed out of Duke. I honestly wasn't sure what to expect, but in hearing that not only were they going to pay for my flight to fly to a different location so that I could attend one of their underways when the so the entire program itself centers around the UNOLS vessels within the United States, which travel between different places. They're the large vessels that do a lot of the oceanographic research that exists for different universities. But obviously, when they're between projects, they need to report, as in go to another port. And it's kind of a waste of taxpayer dollars to just send it for no reason. So why not let students get their own opportunities to explore different things? So through them, I was able to go over to San Francisco from over here in Virginia, flew over there, and we took one ship that ended up going all the way to Hawaii over the course of 11 days. I will be honest, I have never been so terrified in my life. I had not properly thought about how deep the ocean was until that point. I am a coastal scientist. I am not a deep water scientist. But honestly, it was an amazing experience getting to see other scientists who wanted really to experience and understand their own forms of science, explore for themselves, and honestly just connect with other people who weren't as sure as well. So again, amazing experience. But that led, of course, to the Ray Fellowship. Not long after I got back from my STEM Seas program, I ended up just at a protest, as some do, with a friend of mine. And we ran into somebody I'd previously met at a Ray, not sorry, at Ray, at a BIMS conference, the very first one they ever had. And she had informed me that they actually moved the actual dates that accept people for the Ray Fellowship. Generally, it's like 2 to 3 years post graduation. They had moved it to three, which made me eligible for the time. So ever since that, I kind of hit the ground running. I was able to get this fellowship, and I've gotten to do a lot of the different things that I was involved in back when I was in undergrad, on top of expanding some of my own personal interests. So, in my general day to day, I work between our conservation, Arctic fisheries, plastic, and climate programs, specifically doing science and knowledge support with all of my socioecological research. I do a few archive and database dives in my day to day and a lot of literature reviews, which I'm coming to realize I kind of enjoy. Some event planning and execution, which has been amazing for resume building and just generally knowing how to contact people properly. And honestly, relationship building and partner support, which has been one of my favorite parts. I've gotten to travel to a number of different locations and honestly do site visits, visiting and recognizing a lot of the efforts that our community partners do. In the conservation field, they have these things that are called big blues. And sometimes, like, well, yes, I believe that ours would be technically considered one, but with a lot of smaller NGOs that are community based, run based on a smaller capacity, the relationship that's held between these larger organizations and the smaller ones are extremely important. And I've gotten to dedicate myself almost entirely to that, which has been a privilege in itself. I wanted to show a few pictures from my travels, of course. I got to be involved in a number of different projects around different places. When I first started at Ocean Conservancy, I actually got to go up to Alaska to help officiate and try to finish up a gathering to research different people's community-based perspectives specifically on salmon change, since members of the community had noticed a lot of physical body change in a lot of the salmon, meaning they hadn't gotten to that maximum size in years that they usually had seen. Another gathering in Alaska we attended where that you can see in the bottom right and bottom left corners, respectively. But another gathering specifically inviting, I believe, over 300 of the 500 federally recognized tribes of Alaska coming together to speak on their own specific positions, perspectives, and legacies when it comes to beliefs and how the ocean should be governed and experienced, really. I've gotten to go to a number of different conferences along with Tyrese, of course. Unfortunately, I cut our B-rail out. I'm so sorry, man. But there's been a number of different opportunities that have opened up that we realized, not just through the Ray Fellowship and through Ocean Conservancy, but just in general, are free, open to the public, and are very much based on communities coming together and educating each other. So I honestly am immensely happy about what I've gotten to do. I never thought I'd be able to do all of the things that I have. And honestly, since I was a child, got to out myself a little bit here, big Pokemon fan. So the idea of traveling around the world and honestly getting to just connect with different people on their own standing in their own terms was amazing to me. So in that, I want to close out with a couple lessons that I've learned and the things that I really want you guys to try to take away, which is honestly be curious and ask questions. Sometimes people don't feel like answering questions. Sometimes people just don't know the answers to questions that they don't want you to know. Half the time, it's literally just the fact that you need to Google for yourself. Look into things, ask your professors, be comfortable talking to teachers, and honestly, any type of opportunity that could take you outside would be able to answer a lot of those. Second, recognize that you can always learn more. I've realized that even with my own community's background knowledge and a lot of the things that I was equipped with, I do still need to follow a principle of going everywhere with a plate half empty. If I'm going to someone's house and they want to, give me leftovers, it's amazing and of course a great opportunity, but I don't want to go there trying to inundate them and make sure that they understand my position, you know. And lastly, have the hard conversations and be comfortable talking about intersectionality. In the conservation field, I've realized there's a lot of changes that have been going on. And with the newer generation being very unapologetic and especially being very comfortable recognizing a lot of the intersections, the ways that people get impacted by policies, the ways that people get impacted by their own environments and climate change. Honestly, I just want to see better. And I know that I've already been seeing it all around with some of my colleagues. Um, and yeah, I just want to say lastly, Pahom, thank you. Many thanks sincerely by my people's wording. But I wanted to share a couple links based on some of the things that I'd experienced and learned. Feel free to take a picture right now. We'll talk about whether or not the slides are going to get shared out later on, of course, but feel free to also click my QR code. That goes straight to my LinkedIn where you can see a lot more, I guess, of my reflection on these experiences in depth and have them written down, of course. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And I believe I'm passing it to Angel.
Amazing. Thank you, Aspen. Let me get our spotlight set up while Angel starts sharing screen. This has been hard because while you all are talking, I just have so many like thoughts and ideas that I want to share at the same time.
Perfect. Let me start my timer and I will round us out. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angel Iriagomo. I'm the Engagement and Outreach Specialist here at Ocean Conservancy on the International Coastal Cleanup Team. But before I get into that, I think it's really important that we look at the journey because it's a lot of fun and we'll see how I ended up here. So to start us off, I am a Connecticut native, born and raised. I did most of my schooling in Connecticut before transferring to Mill Creek High School in Houston, Georgia. And then I did my senior year in South Florence High School in Florence, South Carolina. And it was because of where I spent my senior year was I able to find out where I was going to go to college because I had never heard of the college that I applied to, but that was actually the same year that my school had won the 2017 National College Football Championships. Any guesses? Any big fans? It's okay. I went to Clemson High. Oh, I get myself. I went to Clemson, so go Tigers. I went to Clemson and Clemson, South Carolina. I was an animal and veterinary sciences major all my life. I knew I was going to be a veterinarian, loved animals. I would try to revive dead animals. I was just hardcore animal lover. But then it was my second semester of my freshman year, me and my roommate down there in the bottom left, that's Elise. We had the same exact major. We started to compare our vet journeys and like shadowing vets, and we really had to ask ourselves, do we want to do this for the next 8+ years? Like we did a lot of research. The overall veterinary science degree isn't the most happy, and a lot of the times, pet owners only go to the vet when something is wrong. And just due to the cost of medicine, the economy, a lot of people end up putting their pets down. And so I knew if I was a vet, I would be very broke and very sad. So I made the pivot and I studied animal agribusiness instead of pre-vet. And I had never heard of that, but essentially it is a business minor built into the animal science major. So I was able to take courses like economics, marketing, management, and I really enjoyed those classes. Like being a consumer, it was really interesting to know like what companies kind of look for when like they produce their products. But Clemson was a great time. I had about three jobs every semester. I was president of several clubs. I was a TA, RA, ambassador for my college. You name it, I did it. Like I highly recommend just being involved in college, like the best that you can. It's a great time. Then spring 2020 rolls around. I had just been accepted into a mission trip to Dominica. I was going to build schools and learn about conservation. Happy go lucky. Just kidding, that didn't happen. Why? Because, like the saying goes, COVID shut me all the way down. And so that was a major bummer from spring 2020 and on. The rest of my schooling would be virtual. And so we got sent home for the majority of my junior year, and then we were welcomed back on campus late fall. So starts my senior semester. I am in my email and I see a email from my college that was accepting applications for these National Science Foundation programs called REEU fellowships. And they're not at every institution, but there's several across the country. And they're just summer intensive research projects that are specific depending on what you apply to. So the one I applied to was nicknamed P4, and the goal was to enhance the next generation of data savvy food animal professionals. And I had never heard of that, but I thought it was really cool. And the only caveat is you had to be still a student to enroll. So my roommate and I, Elise, we just pushed our graduation, which is a whole lot more simple than people make it out to be. You just kind of don't graduate. And then we applied and we got accepted. And it was a really amazing program. I learned how to code. I did my first GIS mapping, and I learned a lot. Now, hats off to anyone who wants to do coding full time. That is a lot of brain power. We need people like you because I'm not that. But it was really cool. I got to meet a lot of data science savvy professionals. And I also ended up being a published author. So if you were to Google this paper, it's really cool because I've seen people reference it in like their senior theses. You will see my name. I never thought I would be a published author at 22, so that was really, really cool. But also at the end of this program, we got to meet mentors across the world that were professionals in their different niche of data scientists. So I knew I was about to graduate. I was like, hey, I really like you and the work that you're doing. Do you have any open positions? And she was like, not really, but I really like you, so I can like help you make something. The only caveat is you have to move. I said, okay, sign me up. Where are we going? So Elise and I, because of course she came with me, packed up road trip all the way down to Nebraska. So for about 7 months, I was an intern at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, in the Biological Systems Engineering Department. And I was helping Dr. Tammy with her PhD students, and we were looking at the heat stress cycles in menstruating cows. I also helped her build a website for her department. Had no idea how to do that, but I told her that I did, and I figured it out. And it was really amazing. Like I loved it. I again had pushed my graduation because I think there was like a benefit if I was still a student. So I just extended it. Loved it so bad. But then this finally ends. It's the end of 2021, and I have to graduate. But do I? Because one thing I really wanted to do before I graduated was study abroad. And now I highly recommend when you start to matriculate in college, if you qualify for the Pell Grant, you are automatically eligible for the Gilman Scholarship. This is a federally funded scholarship that gives you money to study abroad. And throughout my time at Clemson, I had applied three times. I was accepted all three times, but Clemson had closed their programs because of COVID. So I thought one last hoorah. I saw like they were slowly starting to open back up travel. I said, I don't care where I go, just give me the most bang for my buck. And I applied, accepted, and got in. And so I picked South Korea. I knew nothing about Southeast Asian culture. I just knew I could stay there for the longest time and it was the cheapest. And I had an amazing time. I was able to write for the local paper. I did trash cleanups. I didn't speak Korean, but I could speak body language and I know trash is bad. So I was able to connect with local groups there. I was involved in their culture day and talked about my Nigerian heritage. I met a lot of amazing people. I traveled all around. It was really great. And again, I could still do it because I had pushed my graduation. And so my degree at this point was done for like 15 months. So I was taking really cool courses like introductory to the language, Korean science, Korean art, just having a ball. But then it's like, okay, it's the end of spring 2022. Angel, like, you have to come back home. Does she finally graduate? She does. So when I come back home that summer, I finally walk across the stage, and here's my final major. It's a mouthful, but I am so happy that I did it. I got the best of both worlds. I got my passion for animals, and I learned a lot about business. And so that was really great. But then it's like, okay, I graduated, like, now what? Rewind to Korea. I was like up at like 2 a.m. because that jet lag is no joke. But I was also a part of Manners, which is Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. It's a nationwide organization and they had different chapters. I was the vice president of the one at my school, but it's a really amazing platform that plugs different students of color into the conservation spaces. And so they had a job board, and I saw that they had openings for the Ray Fellowship program that my lovely two peers had already mentioned. And I just saw conservation, job, and benefits. And so I applied. And that is how I landed myself at Ocean Conservancy. So I packed up from Connecticut and moved to DC, and I'm actually Tyrese's predecessor. So I was the government relations fellow, and so from 2022 through 2024 everything that Tyrese mentioned, I got to partake in as well. When I wasn't on the Hill, I was super involved in different organizations like Black and Marine Science, Minorities and Shark Science. That bottom left picture is me doing shark tagging in Miami. I got to give a talk at the University of Miami. While at Ocean Conservancy, I was also able to connect with different teams and I was able to do cleanup work, travel to places like California and Alaska and do marine debris. So it was an amazing, amazing 2 years. And one project that came out from that is I was tasked for 1 year doing research with our climate plastics team, and we wanted to look at why the Paris Agreement, which is the super like important climate change document, why weren't they including greenhouse gas mitigation strategies as a way to reduce climate change? And so I was the lead project researcher. And so for a year, I read through hundreds of countless documents, and I had a bunch of meetings with different professionals. And ultimately, I was able to present all my research at the first ever Petrochemicals and Climate Change Conference at the University of Cambridge in England. And that was a huge like step in its own because I ended up presenting the research all by myself. That was not the plan. But life happens and you just got to roll with it. And so that was amazing. I got amazing feedback and we were able to type up a report that is still referenced and hopefully that we can build upon it in the future. But what is work without a little play? So you best believe I had to do some traveling. And so I went to the King's Cross station at the famous platform in London, because if you know, you know, Hogwarts family, where are we at? But then I came back from London and I actually was able to go to Zimbabwe because once you complete your Gilman study abroad requirements, you are part of the alumni network. And so I was able to apply to this food security program where I got fully funded trip to Zimbabwe. I spent 2 weeks there. I got to meet the ambassador of Zimbabwe, visit different farms, different like visit the embassy. It was an amazing, incredible experience that changed me for the better. And then when I got back from Zimbabwe, I had also went to Sweden because not a lot of people know about this program, but I highly recommend the Young Scientific Program Committee. Anyone across any discipline, age 35 and under, can apply, and you are grouped with different professionals from all across the world about water security. And so this year, well, in 2024, the thematic scope was water for food security. Absolutely amazing time. I learned so much, so I highly recommend to look into this as well. Then I finally come back and I was offered a full-time position at Ocean Conservancy on a different team, the International Coastal Cleanup, which is what I do now. So, woohoo, your girl finally got a big girl job. So this is my amazing team. And so my role as the engagement and outreach specialist is kind of split into two buckets. So we have the outreach part, which is stuff like this, being able to speak to the public, do ocean advocacy work, do tabling events at different conferences, and then the bulk of my work is doing cleanups. So because we are a nonprofit, we have corporate partners like Bank of America, Stanley, American Express, and they fly my team out across their different offices across the globe, and we put on cleanup events with their companies. So it's really amazing. I did not know a position like this could exist. I've been able to travel to Australia, Singapore, Tokyo. I just found out that I'm going to Spain in April. It's amazing because I get to see the world and still do what I love, being a conservationist at heart. So what makes the ICC so important is that we are the world's largest cleanup effort that picks up trash for the ocean. And so these numbers were taken back in September of 2025, so they only have grown, but we've been around for 40 years. We just celebrated that in 2025 as well. It just started out with two women in Texas who had a dream to pick up the trash and to track where it goes. And that is the most important part of the work that we do. We created a app called CleanSwell. It's completely free on the App Store and the Google Play Store. Essentially, you download it, you put in where you are, and then you just put in what trash you're finding. All of that information gets looped into Tides, which is the world's largest database for marine debris. And so, over years that we have implemented this, all of the data has been able to inspire and inform policies like the intentional balloon release ban that happened a few years ago in Florida, the single-use plastic ban, the cigarette butt ban. So this information is so crucial because it is in like it's ever evolving. Hopefully we get to a point where we don't have to input so much trash and we can kind of look at just, reduction strategies, but every step is super important. And we could not do this work without our coordinators. So across the world, we have over 500 groups who were doing this already. And so we merely serve as a hub of resources and connections. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We just want to make it stronger. And by doing all of this, connecting people, doing the data collection, we do believe that piece by piece that we can make a big difference for our ocean. And as the numbers shown, we're doing, I think, a step in the right direction. So lastly, like what are you supposed to grasp? Because there has been a lot of information thrown at you from myself and my peers, but I think the bottom line is it's okay if you don't know. It's okay to not know. All of our avenues look so different. And I feel like that's what's so amazing about just taking chances. You never know where you're going to end up. So I encourage you to say yes. I am nicknamed the side quest queen. I love just saying yes and seeing what happens. So many beautiful opportunities have came about from me just saying yes. Also be curious. Asking questions gets you so far. Please do not be embarrassed to gain more information, to not know something. People perk up when you are interested in what they have to say. Be open to change. I cannot imagine what I would be if I didn't go to Korea or Nebraska or like Clemson, like all places that are like so far away from home. I was like, yeah, sign me up. And then be passionate. At the bottom line, if you don't know how to do something, people will be attracted to your passion and your curiosity and openness to learn. I didn't know how to build a website, how to code, how to speak Korean, but I was like, yeah, I'm passionate about traveling and seeing the world. So at the very least, just be yourself and be authentically open to change. And lastly, what would be a presentation without shouting out my children? These are my beautiful fur babies, Boomy and Beatrix. That is them. And then, of course, me and Elise are still locked in best friends. And so these are our Christmas photos that I just have to show you. But lastly, if you ever email me, you will definitely hear me always say, go blossom, just go be yourself, go spread your wings, like just the world is yours. And as cheesy as it says from an ocean organization, like the world really is your oyster. So go out and go blossom. Please email me. I know I talked about a lot of different opportunities and groups, but please do not hesitate to email me at any time. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Angel. Amazing. Let me add
Yeah,
stuff.
I have to say, I think all of us listening have been like, hey, can we join you on some of these activities? Like the collective amount of work and experiences that you have all had is like seriously amazing. Very inspirational too. So one thing I want to say is I really want to say that we appreciate your honesty about your education and career paths. One of the things that I noted, because of your age, is that you were all affected by COVID, and we obviously had NOSB students affected by COVID. You know, we had to switch over to virtual competitions that year because of the travel restrictions. And just I found it really interesting because there's a lot of researchers who are wondering what the total impacts of COVID are going to be, um, sort of on the education and career opportunities of students that were affected. And I have to say that the one thing that's really inspiring about the three of you is that you all persevered. So I want to say to the students who are listening that that idea of perseverance and just keeping going and looking for those opportunities and not feeling like you hit a wall, but that you were going to try to find ways around it, I think is really inspiring. So again, thank you all for being honest. And I also just want to say that I think it's fantastic, all the little bits of advice that you gave at the end of your presentations. I really hope that those listening take that to heart because it's coming. I can tell you all are really talking from your experience and what meant the most to you. So thank you. So yeah, as Nicole mentioned in the chat, if any of our participants have questions, go ahead and enter them into the Q&A box and we'll ask them. But I know we have a few to go through with you. Um, and I think this is one of the things that we always want our career experts to highlight. But you all mentioned that your journeys were very winding. They weren't just sort of this like straight shot. So we're just sort of curious if there's anything that you would do differently, what would it be? And feel free to jump in, whoever wants to answer first.
I think I can, and that might inform something that Angel's gonna say, but sincerely, I know a lot of them were canceled during COVID years since I'm like the oldest COVID kid here, but doing an REU, like the undergraduate research experiences, they are extremely valuable. And I honestly really do feel sad that I didn't get to experience one of them. They give you a great amount of connections and honestly, even national and international connections in general, just with people who would be talking to you during the program. So I'd say that.
I had also touched on this point a little bit earlier, but with me being a Bachelor of Arts and like finally finding the passion to like start pursuing other things on the other side of the aisle with marine science and those initiatives. I think it took me a long time to like finally get that eye-opening experience and be like, oh, this is something I want to pursue and dip my feet into. If I could do anything differently, it's just like, to know that and acknowledge that and pursue those things earlier on. It's okay if you find that on later on because winding path is always super crazy, but yeah, to just know that there is so many opportunities that you can pursue and put yourself in, and you don't need to feel necessarily constrained by your major or your background or like your future initiatives. Like you can put yourself in any space and learn from it because everything is important later on. You can apply everything.
I think they said it best. Honestly, I don't know if I would do anything. I don't honestly have like a good answer. Honestly, if anything, I would have said yes to more things. I don't know if that counts as like a cop-out answer, but Aspen and Tyrese gave great answers.
So, all three of you ended up going to college. How did you know that college was the right fit for you? And how did you know that college specifically was the right fit for you?
I can start this one off if you guys want to. The answer is I did not, and I did not. I realized that college itself takes a lot of, on top of like your exploration really being incentivized by the university, it takes a lot of personal self exploration. I'd say like maybe 10 of my friends that I had, like really close friends, my freshman year, did make the active decision to drop out and no longer pursue higher education. And honestly, some of them are better off for it. I can't say, oh, yeah, no one go to college. I would honestly never say that because the connections, the opportunities, honestly, the way that our world works and industries work, it's way too beneficial. But for myself, I'd say I didn't really know that I was at the right program until I realized that I could have a dialogue with professors. I found people who really were comfortable treating students like people who already had their own active thoughts, even if they were people to teach. And that's just why I decided on my program specifically.
Anything
Yeah,
to add?
okay, I'll go second. I honestly had no idea. When I was in Connecticut, I thought I'd be going to UConn, Huskies. Honestly, Clemson just happened to win, and I had never heard of them. And then when I did research, I'm like, oh, like they are a top land grant institution. They had animal farms, which was super important because I wanted to get research with big animals. Um, so that was about it. But honestly, just like not being afraid to try new places, especially like once you do the college tour, that gives you a great idea of like, okay, like can I see myself getting up at like 7 a.m. and walking across like 3 miles? That's very important. Do not underestimate college tours. My goodness, the shin splints are real. But just seeing like what fits your major and your spirit, I think you'll know when it's time.
Therese, do you want to add?
Yeah, yeah. I'll also say that my mom really wanted me to stay home for college, and UCSB was like the college that I got into that was like the furthest, and I was like, I gotta get away from home. But um I went to UCSB because of its uh very unique beach, its environmental studies program, and everything else that it had to offer. I'm sorry, mom. I know. She's the biggest supporter of my life. I still appreciate her. I was just like, I gotta go super far, but that's not necessarily true. I had a really great time, and being in college, I ask a million and one questions, and being in a community with a bunch of different individuals who are very plugged into current science, current environmental initiatives, current initiatives in general, fueled my understanding and my development of where I wanted to go and the things I wanted to do. So I just knew I wanted to be in that place just because it was a very deep concentration of people who I could rely on and ask questions that could further, change the trajectory of where I wanted to go.
Great. So there was a question about, is finding a community important? I think all three of you highlighted that specifically that yes, you found communities in the work that you're doing. So I guess my question would be, how did you find those communities and what advice do you have for students in terms of sort of that idea of networking and meeting folks who could connect you to the communities and these opportunities that got you so far in your careers?
I can start off. I know like yeah, networking has become such a like a buzzword recently because it can be very difficult to like cold open like walk up to somebody and ask them questions, but I will say like a good part of it is very necessary, and for the networking that I've done, it's like really helped me out with some of the professors that I've met in my classes who have gone on to like really inspire me or help me out further along in my career. Asking questions of like yeah, your professors, of your friends, that's all networking too. Depending on like what clubs you want to get into, taking risks, like how did you enjoy this. um I'd say start with a crowd that you can are familiar with, that being your professors and your friends, and then slowly on you build those skills to where you can just like start asking of strangers or other club members and get yourself really um in the weeds there.
And I will jump in, just echoing everything that Tyrese has said. My biggest like mantra is closed mouths don't get fed. So I'm never shy to be like, hey, do you have a job? Hey, what opportunities are out there? A follow-up email goes so far. Like I still keep in contact, just like very few often with some of my college professors. Sitting in the front of the class, as nerdy as that may seem, apart from I really can't see, but like I always want to make sure like I am seen because you will see me and like Like, best believe after my first semester of my freshman year, I was asked to be a TA for my spring freshman year. And that does not happen very often for freshmen, but they see your dedication, your work ethic. I am not shy going to office hours. If you don't know, like, do not be shy, especially in college. You are paying them essentially. Like, that is your education. Like, you need to feel some sort of power and like entitlement for your education because only you can take yourself so far. And just being yourself, like don't try to fit into whatever you feel like college should be. Like your community will find you in your complete self as is. Like do not change. You are perfect.
Yeah. Really quick, because honestly, I love those points. You guys are better networkers than I am, so I'd say you handled that completely. But from the aspect of like, let's say micro networking as a student, trying to just find your own community, really to have people who can teach you or maybe tell you what opportunities even exist, I'd say it's extremely important and not always the easiest. But one thing, especially during college, that I'd recommend being like a mindset that you try to keep is that not all communities are, well, linear. You don't stay and only talk to the same group of people, and there are a lot of different spaces that you can be in. So exchanging ideas, connecting with multiple groups, that sort of thing is extremely important and honestly a normal part of the college experience. It's better to branch out constantly rather than to just find somewhere you're comfortable that first year.
Great. I know we're slightly over time, so we'll ask one of the last questions. We've talked a lot about sort of like your college and careers and all that, but since we are a academic competition for high school students, the question is, what would you recommend as different opportunities for high schoolers? How can they specifically get involved in ocean conservation?
I'll go first. At least from like an Ocean Conservancy perspective, we don't have any internships, but the best way to stay in the loop with us is the International Coastal Cleanup. Um, you can download the app CleanSwell. You can do trash cleanups in your neighborhood. You can organize. If you ever want to like organize a cleanup or like do like fundraising, you can email me or cleanup@oceanconservancy.org. And I can put that in the chat. But depending on funding, we are always happy to send different trash materials like trash bags, sometimes gloves. We have amazing outreach for educators. Um, that is the best way. And like it doesn't have to be during our ICC season. We collect trash year round. You don't have to live by an ocean to be an ocean advocate. I feel like that's the biggest thing that people kind of hear Ocean Conservancy and they're in the middle of like the desert. That's okay. We believe all trash will end up in the ocean. So it doesn't matter if you're picking up a water bottle around your neighborhood, you are an ocean advocate. So that would be the best way.
Yeah, really great points. I would also add, yeah, on top of Angel's point of you don't need to be near the ocean to be an ocean advocate. There is like so many different ways to be involved within your own personal communities. Yeah, just going out and picking up trash or just studying up on animals, if that interests you, is like certainly ways to like prepare you for later on when you come across other opportunities. But there's like so many things to be an environmental advocate right now is what I'd say. So I wouldn't feel constrained because I also, was raised in Menifee and I know it looks close to the ocean, but it is very far inland. So I would say I was an ocean advocate in like the desert, but yeah, there's so many different ways to be an environmentalist.
I don't know if it was, I guess, appropriate to share a couple of specific programs since they did like ask different things that they could get involved in right now. I know the STEM Cs program that I got involved in, they actually take ages all the way down to, I think, right at the end of high school. So generally anybody would be able to sign up for that. The conservation extern program or the conservation externship program that I mentioned that's run by National Geographic Society and TNC, the Nature Conservancy. I think they have open applications right now. So if you've gotten some scientific experience so far, it would help your application either way, but they take very young ages. I believe the youngest is 18 currently, but you'd have to check their website. And again, we'll be forwarding over this information later on. Different university programs like the Valhen program that I mentioned, specific for Virginia Tech, since they're pretty robust when it comes to environmental science. Black and marine science, a lot of youth opportunities that open up very frequently. So just honestly follow them on Instagram. And then lastly, Zooniverse. I briefly went over that, and I'll put a link in the chat in a second, but it's literally a citizen science website. And like essentially, if you remember the old websites where people used to play like video games online just for free, it's essentially that, but for citizen science and for scientific experience. So back during the COVID era, when I wasn't allowed to volunteer, but my sustainability classes required me to, that is actually something that's helped out a lot. And it's honestly still on my resume because of the different projects I was involved in, specifically one that was shut down, but looked into some of the most like useful fish species over in Hawaii through NOAA. Even they had an opportunity on there. So it's pretty useful.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So, as Nicole noted, we have recorded this. We will be posting it on our YouTube channel. So, and those who registered for the webinar will get sent the link directly, but it'll also be on our social media. And as we put in the chat, yes, we'll try to compile all these links that have been mentioned tonight because you guys were a wealth of information that I'm sure all the students can benefit from. So we'll make sure to get those up on our ocean conservation website with our theme this year. I really want to thank the three of you. This was, like I said, it's actually a really inspiring webinar, I find. I really hope that the students found it beneficial. I think, like I said, one of the key goals of the NOSB is not just to get kids, interested in ocean science, but if they are interested in ocean science, to understand the wealth of opportunities and careers out there. And I think all three of you highlighted how you came from very different backgrounds, took very different paths, but all sort of ended up at ocean science and ocean conservation. And I think that's one of the things we're really trying to highlight, that it is an interdisciplinary field and you can join basically with any background that you come with. And I do appreciate, we didn't get into the questions about it, but I appreciate the conversation about storytelling and taking business management classes and working in, with the representatives from your state and local level. Like all of that is so important. And you all sort of brought this really broad and wealthy, confluence of information tonight. So I really want to, thank all three of you for presenting. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We are hoping to maybe do another activity with the Ocean Conservancy in terms of our theme this year. So we will keep you all updated. But do any of you have final remarks that you would like to make before we sign off tonight? I want to give you guys the last word.
I just have one. Don't be a stranger, y'all. Like, we are serious. Like, email us. Like, we want y'all to be better than us. Please email us. We have so much information to give you. Don't be shy. We love y'all. Tyrese Aspen.
Well,
Echoing what
thank
Angel said, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, I feel like you just took the world is your oyster right out of my mouth. I'm a little worried.
Yeah.
But honestly, sincerely, I would say give yourself a little bit of the time and reverence that you need because you don't need to have it all figured out right now. And I know a lot of high school students are pressured to figure things out. I know I was, and I didn't figure things out until I was like almost 22. So
Mm,
it's okay. You're probably on a good route anyway. Just reach out and yeah, we've got you.
we got you.
And thank you so much for being open to hearing from the students and, if they reach out to you. That's very kind and very helpful. And I have no doubt that you will hear from some. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night, and hopefully we'll see you at a future NOSB event.
Bye, y'all. Go Blossom.